right after the webinar ends so you can watch it again or share it with your colleagues. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the presentation today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and we'll dive in. The last thing I wanted to share is if for whatever reason you're not able to hear me or you're not able to see my screen clearly, just drop that into the chat. I want to make sure that we're not facing any technical issues. Okay, perfect. So today's webinar topic is to effectively manage emails with Outlook 365 and Microsoft Teams. Priority Matrix is going to help you stop drowning in your inbox. So email management, I mean, this is such a huge topic that pretty much comes up in every single one of my one-on-one or group training sessions that I do. No matter what position people are in, whether it's a leader, some type of executive position, or an individual contributor, email management is pretty much always a pain point. And that's because number one, people use emails to communicate internally. And then we also get all of those external emails coming in as well. So at the end of the day, it can oftentimes feel like your inbox is completely flooded, can be hard to find what you're looking for. And really, it can just be super overwhelming. So that's why I decided to tackle this topic today in the session, simply because email management is so relevant to basically everybody that I talk to on a day-to-day basis. So this is actually similar to the poll that I dropped into the chat box that, again, if you have an extra minute, I would love if you can step in there and kind of answer this for me. But how do you currently manage your emails? I ask everybody this who I get to talk to in these one-on-one trainings. And the feedback that I typically hear is, well, I either flag my emails or I mark them as unread, or I just move them to a different folder in Outlook. I'm sure this resonates with a lot of you today because, these three methods are, I would say, the most common way that people kind of tend to go about email management. And then I typically ask, well, how is this working for you? And again, this is similar to the poll that I dropped into the chat box if you haven't had a chance to look at it yet. But I like to ask, okay, well, how is this helping you? Are those three methods effectively working for email management? And unfortunately, the feedback that I typically get is, well, they're not really working. And what this leads to is kind of an overwhelmed inbox. People are forgetting about their emails, leaving clients in the dark, and a lot of the times digging through their inbox looking for emails. So overall, unfortunately, the current systems that people are using for email management just are not working super well, which again is why here at Appfluence we've taken it upon ourselves to make sure that we can help people with this email management aspect and this challenge that's facing so many people on a day-to-day basis. So what is the priority matrix approach and how are we able to help so many of our customers on a day-to-day basis? Priority Matrix will help you prioritize your emails alongside meetings and other priorities. That's absolutely something that I'm going to show you today during this live session. By using Priority Matrix, we help you have notifications for those deadlines and reminders that you set for your priorities or emails. And this also allows you to easily share updates and share those emails with your teammates. So again, rather than having to forward these emails back and forth to get feedback and share ideas about them, again, just kind of clogging that inbox, and you're going to be able to prioritize these emails and keep better track of them in Priority Matrix. Lastly, one of the biggest goals of Priority Matrix is to give you everything you need in just one central space. So when you use Priority Matrix through Teams and Outlook, you're able to see these emails, other priorities, and your meetings all in just one central space. So you can switch context less often, get more done, and make sure no priorities are slipping through the cracks. During this demo today, I'm going to show you how you can use Priority Matrix in Microsoft Teams and Outlook 365 in unison effectively. This is one of my favorite quotes that I received from a CEO that I've been working with for several years. And I asked him, hey, would you mind sharing a little bit of feedback and helping me understand what you like about Priority Matrix? And the feedback I received was something along the lines of him saying, Priority Matrix is super user friendly. Having all tasks in one place allows our team to stay organized and efficient. And again, that's one of our biggest goals for you all. Stay organized, have an effective day-to-day routine, and be able to keep those priorities aligned across the organization. So how do we actually get started with Priority Matrix for the email management aspect of the system? You're going to be able to add Priority Matrix into your Outlook and to your Microsoft Teams platform. Again, we're going to look at both of those together today, but you can either download those directly from within the applications, or you can go to our website, which is what's pictured here, to find the add-ins to download. So without further ado, let's go ahead and step into the demo portion of this webinar today. If any of you have any questions, this would be a really good time to kind of take yourself off mute or drop them into the chat box. I would love to take a second to answer any of those questions before I move into kind of the live demo portion for today. Perfect. So if there's no questions right now, we can kind of carry on. So for a lot of us on the session today, this might be your first time actually seeing Priority Matrix. So I want to take a couple of minutes to kind of walk you through how the system works, what's on my screen here, and lastly, how this all ties into the email management aspect of your day-to-day routine. So first and foremost, what you're going to want to do is add Priority Matrix into your Teams application. So if you haven't done this already, just keep in mind you can go to Apps. And when you type in Priority Matrix in the search bar, you're going to see us come up, click on it, and add the Priority Matrix application. Once you've done this, I always suggest pinning this open so it stays pretty much readily available for you no matter where you're working in Microsoft Teams. Perfect. And then again, if you're new to Priority Matrix, the concept of the system that I want everybody to understand is that Priority Matrix is designed to create a central space for you and your teammates to work together. Whether it's around emails, leads, marketing campaigns, shipments, orders, deliveries. We work with such a wide variety of different organizations. I've seen so many different types of projects tracked in Priority Matrix. But again, really no matter what you're working on, the goal of the system is to help you create these projects to represent the central space where you're able to fully collaborate and share priorities with your teammates. So it's really just as straightforward, again, as creating the project, adding your teammates to it, and then it creates the central space where everybody's able to see the priorities going on in this project, and you're actively able to work together as well. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit, and we're going to use this customer leads project for our example today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a couple of users to this project. Again, setting myself up for basically immediate success because now these two people are able to see all of the emails that I prioritize into this project. Keeping in mind, you're definitely not limited to only tracking emails in these projects. If there's miscellaneous priorities that kind of come up on the fly, such as this one, you can simply just double tap in these quadrants and you can add those new priorities. So let's just say review customer quote, and then we'll say this is going to be due at 3 p.m. today. So it's a pretty urgent task. Again, just as simple as that, you can create that priority. Then what we can do is we can actually go in here. We can delegate it to our teammates. We have a deadline set. I'm able to put all of these subtasks to help me kind of keep track of everything we need to get done for this priority. So task 1, task 2, And when I check off these subtasks, by the way, it's going to update the progress as well. So my team will kind of understand where I'm at for this action item. So that's an example of how I can go in and just add miscellaneous priorities. So everybody on my team can kind of see what we're working on and we can talk about it. The big idea for today's webinar is more specifically focusing on email management. So I want to be super clear that you're going to need to start using Priority Matrix either through the Teams application or the web app, whichever place you want to use it, but that's where you're going to go in and actually set up these projects. You're basically setting the stage for the email management that you're going to be doing through Outlook now. So again, create a couple of projects representing the types of emails that you're managing. And then when we jump back to Outlook and we come across all of these important emails that, number one, maybe we just need to track for our own personal email management, or number two, maybe we need to share these emails with our teammates and make sure they are aware of them as well. Lots of options there. Perfect. Okay. So on the right-hand side, I have my Priority Matrix and Outlook integration pulled up here. Again, if you haven't already, you can go to our website at appfluence.com/downloads, or if you open up Outlook, you can click on Get Add-ins, and there you can search for Priority Matrix and add the Outlook extension this way. Once you have the Outlook extension added, I always suggest pinning it open so it's going to stay there and be basically readily available for you whenever you need it. All right, so a couple of things I'm going to walk us through right now in terms of how the email management aspect works and why it's so incredibly effective for our users and hopefully for you in the future. So first and foremost, the subject of the email turns into the item name. So I'm just going to change this and say webinar example so we can really easily keep track of it. Next up, you're able to choose the project where you would like to prioritize this email. We are going to use the customer leads one for today. You can choose the quadrant where you need to prioritize the email. And I could even go in and I could delegate this email to somebody on my team if I really needed to grab their attention immediately. For today's example, I'll just keep it assigned to myself, but again, you could delegate it immediately. We'll go in and we'll set our due date. And then when I hit create action item, it's going to give me a little preview of this task that I just created. So from here, I could look at it. I could still go in and I can delegate this to one of my teammates. I could set a reminder just so we make sure that we're not forgetting about this task. And I could even start to communicate. So I could say, hey, Bella, can you look at this email for me and draft a reply? Now what we're doing is, as you can see, we're not forwarding this email back and forth. We're not leaving it unread. We have it prioritized with our due date, and we're actually able to discuss it through the Priority Matrix item right now. I'm going to jump back to my project just so I can show you really quickly what this looks like, but don't go anywhere because there's a lot more that I want to show you about the Outlook add-in. So here's the email that I just prioritized. We can see that it was successfully delegated. The due date was added and we're now able to communicate. If I needed to loop other people into this conversation, I can now do this really easily. So now I can say, hey, please read the reply here. Does that work for you? I can have multiple different conversations, multiple people involved, and we're not doing any of this through Outlook. Most importantly, we have our due date and our reminder set, so we're not going to forget about this task if it so happens to slip our mind. Okay, so that is kind of the most straightforward concept, which is turning an item into a task. Alternatively, what you're able to do is you can actually take an email and you can link it to a pre-existing task that you already have. So an example of this would be, let's say you're working with a customer, you create a Priority Matrix item for them, and then they send you a couple more follow-up emails that you need to keep track of. Instead of creating multiple duplicate items that represent the same thing, what you can now do is you can actually just link these emails to the pre-existing tasks that you already have. So I'm going to type in a keyword. I'm going to type in web page. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to just click attach. So it says, basically I've attached this email to that pre-existing item. Again, I'll circle back and I'll show you what that's going to look like. So here it is, uploaded file. We can click on this and it will take me right back to that email. So again, I can invite Bella and I can say, hey Bella, see the attached emails for your information you need to help this customer. Again, we're keeping everything compact. Everything is organized. Other people in this project can also see what's going on. And my inbox, most importantly, is no longer flooded or, drowning in information. Lastly, about this email integration, what's really cool about this is if you need contextual evidence to understand what you're working on with other people in your team, where it says Office 365, you can actually use the drop-down menu to select somebody in your organization, and it's going to show you all of your shared emails with that one person. So basically just surfacing a little bit of contextual evidence to, help you understand how you may need to prioritize this email. So just to sum this up, what did we just look at? I showed you how you can, number one, create a priority in a project. Number two, we looked at turning an email into a task. And number three, we looked at attaching an email to a pre-existing task. So this is definitely really powerful for the concept of email management because now we're able to set deadlines and discuss these priorities without having to flood our inbox. To kind of tie this all together, what I always like to show people is the agenda view through Priority Matrix. So what this agenda view does is it's going to show you across all of your different projects that you have, and it'll show you everything that you have due for today and the next 7 days. And now this would include those emails you've already prioritized. So here we can see everything that I have due today, due tomorrow, and things that are overdue. So here's a couple email examples that I prioritized that must have slipped my mind. So as you can see, if you are able to use Priority Matrix to its fullest potential, the system will do its job by improving communication, helping you keep track of these emails, and again, helping you keep that inbox free and clear of all those dozens of emails that you're always getting. Additionally, when our organizations use Priority Matrix for communication, we've seen them be able to eliminate their internal communication through Outlook by 100%. Because at the end of the day, if you're using these priorities to communicate, your conversations stay more organized and you no longer have to use emails for that main platform of internal communication. So hopefully that makes sense. Circling back to my PowerPoint here, a couple key takeaways that I want to highlight. When you use Priority Matrix, you are able to see your emails, priorities, and your meetings in just one place. You can easily prioritize and discuss emails effectively in Priority Matrix, and you can switch context less often and find what you're looking for in just one place to avoid distractions, avoid wasted time, and spend your valuable time working on what matters the most. So I want to pause here, and what I would love to do is kind of open this up for questions, comments, any feedback that you have about the session so far. What you all can do is you can either drop those questions into the chat box, or alternatively, you can actually take yourself off mute, and I would love to talk to you and we can kind of answer those questions one by one. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to go ahead and get those questions ready and ask them whenever you want. A few common questions that I typically get while I wait for your questions to surface is, can I test Priority Matrix with my team? The answer is absolutely yes. We provide a free 2-week trial to help you get up and running and see how this is really going to support your entire organization. After the trial ends, we have several different licensing options, starting at just $5 per user per month, going all the way up to an enterprise solution. And the best fit really just kind of depends on your need. And if these are questions that you have, I would be more than happy to connect with you one-on-one and kind of look at your use case and see what the best fit will be. Your IT department does not necessarily need to approve Priority Matrix. It's likely already approved due to our high security and our achieved certifications. If for whatever reason IT does need to approve PM, it's not going to be a problem, again, because we have such a high level of security. Most companies don't find a problem with their employees using Priority Matrix. When you do get started with the system, nobody is able to see your projects until you intentionally share it with them. And in fact, nobody in your company even needs to know that you're testing it out. It's completely up to you to decide when you want to tell them this information. Lastly, in terms of support and training, and this is super important to kind of tune in for because I constantly have webinars, live webinars going on basically every single day. We do at least one. So those are always really great to tune into if you can. And then in terms of training, we are able to provide group training and one-on-one training for our enterprise customers. And for everybody else, we have an extremely well built out YouTube channel with dozens and dozens of videos, constantly adding new content to help you get started and get the most out of Priority Matrix. So with all this being said, we can kind of wrap this up if there's no other questions coming through. Hopefully it was helpful to